There are roughly 2,700 billionaires alive in the world today. About 70% of them built their fortunes from nothing. No inheritance, no trust fund, no family business handed down. Just a person, an idea, and the decisions they made over the next 20 or 30 years. So I did something most people never bother to do. I went through 50 of them, across industries, across countries, across decades. Tech founders, retail empires, hedge fund operators, manufacturing dynasties, fashion houses, food chains. I read their interviews, their letters, their biographies, their critics, their lawsuits. And what I found was almost insulting in how predictable it was. Because despite the wildly different industries, the wildly different personalities, the wildly different starting points, every single one of them did the same 6 things. Not 5, not 7, 6. Repeated across every story, every decade, every country. The press talks about luck. The press talks about timing. The press almost never talks about the 6 things. So let me show you.
The first thing all 50 did was take asymmetric risks. The phrase sounds like Wall Street jargon, but it's the simplest concept in finance. Asymmetric means the downside is small and the upside is enormous. Most people do the opposite. They risk a lot to gain a little. The wealthy invert it. Jeff Bezos left a guaranteed Wall Street career to start an online bookstore. Downside? He goes back to Wall Street. Upside? He builds the most valuable company in history. That is the shape of every billionaire decision I studied. Small bet, huge payoff.
Here's what most people miss. Asymmetric risk is not about being brave, it's about being honest. The 50 I studied did not bet their houses. They did not gamble their families. Sarah Blakely launched Spanx with $5,000 she'd saved from selling fax machines. Downside? 5,000. Upside? $1 billion. That ratio is the single most repeated financial pattern in self-made billionaire history. Not luck, not genius. Structure built so the math favored them before they even started.
The second thing all 50 did was hold their highest conviction position for at least 10 years. Not 5, not 7, 10 or more. Bezos held Amazon. Buffett held Berkshire. Bernard Arnault held LVMH. Phil Knight held Nike. Larry Ellison held Oracle. Howard Schultz held Starbucks. The patience was foundational. Because here is the brutal mathematical truth nobody tells you. Wealth does not compound in years. It compounds in decades. The first 10 years of any great business look almost indistinguishable from failure. Slow growth, plateaus, critics. The 50 kept holding. Almost everyone around them did not. By year 15, the curve bent so sharply upward that the doubters who'd quit could not even imagine what they had walked away from. But here's where it gets interesting. The third thing they all did contradicts modern advice. Every single one of the 50 was monomaniacally focused on one domain until they were already rich. No side hustles, no 3 industries at once. Walmart, Coca-Cola, Tesla, Microsoft, Inditex. The data on real billionaires says the opposite of what you've been told. Build one stream so massive, everything else becomes irrelevant. This obsession is not glamorous. Sam Walton drove a beat-up pickup truck visiting his own stores in his 60s. Amancio Ortega ate lunch in his factory cafeteria. Bezos slept on his office floor for 3 years. The friends and families thought they were ruining their lives. They were wrong.
The obsession was the moat.
The fourth thing all 50 did was prioritize ownership over income at every single life stage. They did not chase higher salaries, they chased equity. They took lower pay in exchange for stock. They reinvested every dollar back into what they owned, because ownership compounds while you sleep. Salaries only fund lifestyles. Average families measure their year by salary. Wealthy families measure it by how much more of their company, their portfolio, their property they now own compared to last year. If their ownership was up, the year was good. If it was flat, the year was a failure, no matter what the paycheck said. That single shift, repeated for decades, is the invisible engine of self-made wealth.
Now, stop for a second. If you're following along, ask yourself an honest question. Which of these four, asymmetric risk, 10-year horizons, single domain obsession, ownership over income, are you actually doing right now? Not understanding, doing. Because here's the brutal pattern I noticed across all 50 stories. The intellectual gap between average people and self-made billionaires is almost zero. They didn't know more than the people around them. They acted differently. The people next to Bezos on Wall Street in 1994 understood asymmetric risk just as well as he did. They just didn't take the bet. The difference between knowing and acting is the entire reason most people stay where they are. And nodding along to this video by itself changes absolutely nothing. The fifth thing all 50 did was move toward what others were running from. This is contrarian timing, the rarest skill in business. When everyone was exiting commercial real estate in the early 90s, Sam Zell was buying. When everyone was selling Apple stock in 1997, the company was rebuilding from inside. When the fashion industry mocked fast retail in the 80s, Amancio Ortega was patenting Zara. When tech crashed in 2002, Bezos kept hiring. The 50 did not predict the future. They simply refused to flee the present alongside everyone else. And the rewards, every single time, were enormous. This is harder than it sounds. Going against the herd does not feel brave in the moment. It feels foolish. It feels lonely. Elon Musk lost his entire net worth twice before Tesla and SpaceX worked. Howard Schultz was rejected by 217 investors before Starbucks took off. Walt Disney went bankrupt twice. The pattern is not that they avoided pain. They endured pain the average person would not. Contrarian timing is not a tactic, it's a tolerance. The sixth and final thing surprised me the most. All 50 obsessed over their customers, far more than over their competitors. They knew exactly what their buyers wanted, hated, would pay extra for. They built businesses by relentlessly listening to the people actually paying them. Bezos called it obsess over customers, not competitors. Sam Walton called it the customer is the only boss. That obsession built every fortune I studied. This is the trait that separates billionaires from people who run merely successful businesses. Successful operators watch the market. Billionaires watch the buyer. The market is statistically average. The buyer is the source of every dollar that ever existed. The 50 built unfair advantages by paying more attention to one specific person, the customer, than anyone else in their industry was paying. The most boring trait? Also, the most consistent. So there it is. 6 things, repeated across 50 self-made billionaires from every continent,
every industry, every decade of the last 100 years. 1. Take asymmetric risks. 2. Hold your best position for at least 10 years. 3. Stay obsessed with one domain until you've won. 4. Choose ownership over income every time. 5. Move toward the things others are fleeing. 6. Listen to your customers more than your competitors. 6 rules, 50 different fortunes, one identical pattern.
Most people watching will agree with every point, then change nothing about how they live, work, save, and invest. The few who don't are the ones we'll be studying 20 years from now. If this changed how you think about wealth, the subscribe button helps. Educational purposes only, not financial advice.
Thank you for watching. Invest in yourself, invest in your future. See you next time.